Hi everybody, my name's Andrea and welcome to my channel if you're new. Today I'm going to be doing my recommendations for Latinx-A-Thon. If you aren't familiar with Latinx-A-Thon, it is a readathon that I co-host with 3 other lovely, amazing people here on BookTube whose names I will be leaving here. And I thought I'd recommend some books for our prompts that we are hosting this year. Our first prompt is Voices. Read a book by an Afro-Latinx author or Indigenous author, and the book that I chose is called Becoming Beatrice by Tammy Charles, and this book actually doesn't get published until 2 days into our readathon, but I really wanted to mention it just because I think it has really good themes and representation subjects in it. So Becoming Beatrice takes place in 1984 in New Jersey, and it follows 15-year-old Afro-Latinx teenager Beatrice Mendez. She has just lost her brother due to gang violence, and she herself has kind of dabbled into that world a little. So at the same time, she's obsessed with the TV show Fame, and open auditions come into her town, and she's kind of stuck between these two worlds. And in the midst of all this, she meets Nasser, who's a new student from her school from Haiti, and she discovers that she's more like him than she thought. And I really enjoy this book because it delves into her identity as an Afro-Latina, because it portrays the colorism within Latinx communities that often happens. Many of Beatrice's friends in school kind of have this choosing one side or another mentality, and they always refer to her as Latina. They never acknowledge her African heritage. And I like how through Nasser, through the addition of him, Beatrice really starts to understand her identity better and come into her own being, I guess you could say. And I think her world in this book is particularly surrounded by pain, poverty, and passion, but Tammy does a really great job at interweaving all that together. Content warnings though, this book does feature gang violence, murder, blood, homophobic violence, and that kind of stuff. So our next prompt is LATINIDAD, an intersectional Latinx author, and for this category I chose to go with We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia. And I've talked about this book before in my recent Diverse Reads video, I believe. But I would really recommend this book to anybody who's kind of looking for this powerful, queer, revolutionary tale that's very relevant to today's society. One of the things that I like most about this book is that it is inherently Latinx world, but it's broad enough that it's not specific to a specific country. Taylor kind of takes from different revolutionary stories across Latin America and makes this world of Medio. So the plot of the stories follows Danny and Carmen, and they are students at the Medio School for Girls, I believe it's called. And Medio is this kind of dystopian society in which that women are categorized into one or two categories. They can either be primeras or segundas. Primeras are trained to be smart, tactical, and the perfect wife and ideal, kind of almost virginal, while segundas are the mistress type of women. They're seductive, mysterious, they're the homemakers, and they're what gives men pleasure. So primeras and segundas are paired off per relevant man or per important man in society. So Danny and Carmen are sold to Mateo, and he is this very arrogant, self-centered, entitled, white Latinx dude who comes from a very rich political dynasty, basically, and he wants to dominate both of them and just literally be evil. So this book takes place during this time period. It's kind of the eve of revolution. There's been uproar. So Medio is kind of this island country. So the main capital's in the middle, and there's this giant border wall surrounding everything else that keeps all the outsiders and the dangerous people out. And so there's been a lot of riots at the border, there's been a lot of turmoil, there's been a rise of people in the resistance, which in this book is called La Voz. And so you're kind of at the edge of something bigger at the beginning of this book, and Danny and Carmen are kind of pushed into it as the story as the story goes on. Sorry, I mentioned it briefly before, but I do believe that this the structure of this book kind of follows a telenovela structure in just the sense of how everybody's kind of arranged at the beginning of the book. At least superficially, you have 2 female characters and you have one desirable man character who comes from money and from power, and he's outwardly charismatic, and he is married to these 2 girls, one who is very virginal and soft and unassuming, and one who's seductive and voluminous and pretty and whatever. So it's in traditional novelas, you usually have this 2 girls and 1 dude, and they kind of just fight each other over this one guy. And at the end, the dude usually picks the virginal girl. But what I like about how this book, it takes this kind of structure and kind of disseminates it, because the two female protagonists are the one that end up as love interests, and the guy is paid dust, which good. I mentioned this at the beginning when I was talking about this book, but it does parallel to a lot of the bloody oppressive history in Latin America. The examples I'm going to use are going to be from Mexico, just because that is the culture where I come from and the history that I'm most familiar with. In the world of Medio, a lot of the girls go missing and nobody knows where they go, and this really reminded me of the missing girls from Juarez, Los 43, who were a group of students who were killed by the Mexican government, basically for being political, and they still don't want to admit it. This barely happened a few years ago. In Mexico especially, there's a history of killing students. 1968, 1971, and Los 43 was in 2014. And if you want to learn more about like the violent history and the dirty cop history in Latin America, there's a lot of great documentaries out there, especially on Netflix. Two that I've just recently seen are Hasta los Dientes and 1984, and they're both documentaries about how the government will keep people quiet. And this book, of course, deals with a lot of classism. The people that are closer to the border of Medio are seen as inferior and peasant-like and whatever, and people that are closer to the capital are richer and more educated, civilized. So there's a lot of classism there, and it kind of also parallels classism in Latin America. Ultimately, I think that classism in Latin America really just originates from the shared pain stemming from colonization. So I think it literally goes all the way back there, and I think I enjoyed how you see remnants of that in some of the text. Our next prompt is Roots, a translated book or a book featuring more than one language, and you get bonus points if there is no italics. The book that I chose is a middle grade, and I've spoken about this book before, but I just wanted to plug it in one more time, and that is The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora by Pablo Cartaya. And I really believe actually, that if you enjoyed Don't Date Rosa Santos, you will really enjoy this book as well, because it's a similar storyline and similar themes. So this is about 13-year-old Arturo, who is from Miami, and he hangs out at his abuela's restaurant, La Cocina de la Isla, and life is pretty good for him, honestly. He's crushing hard on this girl called Carmen, and Carmen has just moved to Miami the year previous because her mother died. She's from Cuba. But then a land developer comes in and he wants to gentrify the whole area, essentially. He wants to turn the entire neighborhood into high-rises, and this really angers the entire neighborhood, understandably. So Arturo and Carmen team up to find ways to stop this, and I really like that this story in particular incorporates the poems of Jose Marti into it. And if you don't know who that is, he was a famous Cuban poet and writer and revolutionary, so incorporates his ideals as well as his poetry within the text. And I like that the Spanish in here, usually when it's own voices, but particularly in this one, it flows so nicely. I wanted to mention this book as well because it deals with gentrification, and I believe that gentrification is something that affects so many Latinx communities, and it's often underreported and kind of hidden, kind of in a way. It doesn't really get the attention it deserves. I mean, it's not anything new. An example of gentrification that first comes to mind is the whole Dodger Stadium thing that happened in 1959, I believe. 3 Mexican American neighborhoods are buried beneath the Dodger Stadium. This is actually called the Chavez Ravine issue, I believe, and it happened in 1959 when the Dodger Stadium was being built. These low-income, predominantly Mexican American communities were basically kicked out of their homes in order to make way for the stadium. And they were forcibly removed from their homes. They were taken out of their homes by the sheriff, by the police, and they watched their homes be bulldozed over. They stayed by their homes and stayed by the rubble, and they protested. They did so many things, but tragically the story doesn't have a good ending because there was nothing they could do over it, and they basically just lost their entire community. So if you're ever in Dodger Stadium, I guess, the next time you have a Dodger dog, you can think about that one. But yeah, gentrification happens to this day all over the country. Echo Park, Boyle Heights. I believe Denver is the city with the highest rate of gentrification in the nation. I'd have to re-Google that, but I believe that's so. So I think it's also very timely. Next prompt is Heritage. Read a book by a Latinx author from a non-Spanish speaking country / heritage. And I have 2 recommendations for this prompt just because one is on the lighter side and one is a little darker and sad and just heartbreaking. So I thought I'd give y'all 2 options. The first one is The Last 8 by Laura Paul, and she's a Brazilian author. And I really enjoyed this book because it's basically a love letter to sci-fi and sci-fi fantasy. There are elements of like Cloverfield, Alien, and Star Wars and specifically because the main character Clover, she's like a Latinx main character teenager, and she's a pilot, and she really reminds me of Poe Dameron from Star Wars, like a lot. So basically there's like this alien invasion and the apocalypse happens, and a group of teenagers band together in Area 51 and they become friends, and then they have to save the planet because aliens. And I really enjoyed it because of that. It was very like nostalgic read for me because I like love science fiction fantasy films, and there's so many callbacks in this book. The next book I want to recommend is a little darker. It is Brother, I'm Dying by Edwidge Cat, and she is a Haitian author. This is a non-linear memoir. So Uncle Joseph was Edwidge's second father, basically. He raised her in Haiti after her parents left to New York to find better life. And when she was 12, she moved to the US to be with her parents and her family, but she's always missing her uncle who raised her. He's a pastor in Haiti. And after this very scary incident, it wasn't safe for Uncle Joseph to be in Haiti anymore, so he goes to Miami. When he arrives at Miami, he's actually detained by like ICE and Homeland Security, and he is dead within days. And mind you, he is a very frail 81-year-old man, and this story actually made national headlines. Sorry, my memory card just died. As I was saying, a lot of people don't realize the really scary and dangerous situations people go through in their home countries that makes them leave, that makes them flee. So I think this memoir is really relevant, especially in today's kind of very anti-immigrant society and sentiment. And the last prompt is Latinx Takeover, which is reading the group book, which is The Grief Keeper. I just got this book in today actually, and if you guys want to win a copy of The Grief Keeper, all you have to do is hop on over to our Twitter, where we'll be hosting a giveaway for this very beautiful book, and all the giveaway info and rules are on there, so go check us out at Latinxathon on Twitter. This book follows 17-year-old Marisol, who is fleeing from El Salvador, and she ends up in a detention facility in the US. And in order to gain asylum, she is offered the chance to become a grief keeper. And what a grief keeper is, it's like a part of an experimental study where she takes other people's grief and harbors it inside her own body. So yeah, I'm very excited to read it. So yeah, that's been my recommendation to you. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you soon with the TBR video. I have a lot of really cool books to talk about, and probably a lot of cool information about the Grief Keeper that I've been keeping under wraps, but I'm really excited to share with you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.